I'm going to talk about now, which is, I'm assuming this is when you're actually back at school for a period, but you were bullied.
Yeah. The actual bullying part really was at home, not at home, but it was two girls. Didn't live in the local street, but they were a couple of streets away from where I lived, and they had wanted to take me to a park, and it was only, I don't know, must have been 8 months or something, and so I'm starting to recover it. And my mum thought, you know what, just to give Samantha that little bit of normality, so they took me to Haywood, and we got further and further, but I was really tired and I was struggling with walking, and they took me in this field and started hitting me. And hitting me, and I couldn't fight back. I tried running, and stones were thrown at me, and I was so upset, and then I wet myself. I couldn't believe that what they did to me, really.
Yeah. Do you know, so many of the guests that come on the show were bullied when they were kids, and it went on to spur them on to do great things.
Yeah.
You know, because quite often, I used examples. Colin Unsworth, we call him Mr. Mushroom. He's been on Gardener's World. He's quite a well-known mushroom enthusiast, and he was bullied, so he spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid and learned about mushrooms.
Yeah.
Sandy Hull, who's a multiple European Thai boxing champion, was bullied as a kid. He then turned that around and is now helping other people and training children with self-defence and things. So quite often, the greatest thing a human being can do is to take a negative, learn from it, and then find somebody else that's maybe going through that. And it can either spur them on or help somebody else by turning it into a positive. So
definitely.
As terrible as what happened to you is, and it, you know, we can't change it now, it's probably fueled your fire to do a lot of things you've done in life. You know, these experiences, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. You know, out of the darkness comes great strength. And
Definitely.
you've survived a terminal illness.
Yeah.
You've gone on from that. You become an author.
Yes.
You have a training academy to help people with holistic therapies. So maybe all of that wouldn't happen if those girls hadn't have thrown those stones.
I think you're right. You put it into total perspective there. I think that happening, and about at that time as well, I think people, because years ago cancer wasn't as widely known about then. People were very scared, and children, you know, were more frightened to want to play with me, so I'll probably be the last person that they want to pick in a game or something like that. And this went on.
Oh, can you catch it? And if they've got no hair, they don't. You know, they're frightened.
There's so many things, and it's not their fault. Of course, it's not. It's just the way. But to me, as a child, you feel very much like, you know, as though you're not included. You know, they don't want you to be there. They don't want you to play with them. And, you know, when time went on, and the herbal medicine was and I was stronger and stronger. And there was a lovely friend who I'm very close with now, Lynn. But we've been friends from being little. And no matter what, she always included me in everything. Again, I was blessed in knowing Lynn. I was blessed that she didn't judge me. She didn't treat me differently, where all the other children would. You know, and that made a massive difference to me. And the home education, because I was having the home education, my parents didn't want to wrap me up in cotton wool. They still realised that, you know, I needed my friends. So Lynn would sometimes stay overnight and sleep at my house. She would eat different foods to me, but she accepted that. So Lynn was instrumental in that way to me. My parents, with the educating, they were still struggling. They were still being forced, this battle again. Samantha's got to go in school, and it got to a point where my father needed some support from someone legally, and Andrea put him in contact with a lovely man called Ivan, who's solicitor, and he'd been involved in education otherwise for other parents that were fighting the cause to educate their parents at home. So he was in Birmingham, so we went there to see him, and he really helped my dad really then to fight the authorities, because before that he was fighting it on his own, and it was like fighting a losing battle. And he thought, I need this help. And he started to help my father legally.
See, I'm just going to, sorry to interrupt you, Samantha, but do you really think, I'm trying to get my head around this, because I find it staggering that if you go in school, there's a risk to your life, but they're adamant you've got to go.
Yeah.
Now, 20, 30 years on, 40 years on, do you think it would be different now? I think we've evolved a little bit as a nation where if that situation's repeated and they know that your immune system's low, you've recovered from radiotherapy, leukemia, and if you're going to school, your life's at risk.
Yeah.
Would they then now be reasonable about it? And I'd like to think the answer's yes now, and I think it's changed.
I think these days alternative medicines and complementary therapies are widely accepted more, and a lot more people are realising the benefits of these fantastic treatments.
But where I'm going is whether the authorities would still push you into a school knowing that it's jeopardising your life because you're still in recovery from the, we'll call it leukemia, but it's actually the radiotherapy.
Yeah, of course it is, definitely. To be honest, a lot more parents can homeschool now, so I think I'd have been, in this era, I would have had that option more.
Yeah. I think parents now are more aware of the rights and won't be pushed around as much. But back then, if you were a single mother, you were ostracised. If you didn't toe the line in any way, people were frightened, weren't they?
Absolutely. Of course they were frightened. And, in our local area, the streets, they're the wacky parents, them with the, they're trying to do these wacky, weird treatments, But these days, herbal medicine, how many people around the world use these forms of treatments for healthcare?
I'll tell you something. I did a show with a lady on here called Edwina Staniforth, and she's a medical herbalist, qualified, very well known, very well regarded, from people that I know and in this in the Northwest. Yeah. And I had some shows pulled early on. I appealed them all. I've got them all overturned.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of the shows they pulled straight away. The algorithms pulled that, flagged it up straight away and pulled that show because it wasn't mainstream medicine. Since then, obviously, then what they do, they have a personal look at it. So if you appeal it, they have to look at it manually.
Yeah.
And they agreed and it was fine and I explained and it got overturned. But just because that lady isn't mainstream medicine and it's complementary medicine, holistic medicine as well, that got pulled, that show. I find that crazy, incredible. There's certain things, I thought I'd sussed everything and I knew what was happening. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah. And, honestly, that isn't a surprise for me. And the only reason I'm saying that is because we had to fight the authorities. I mean, this went on from 8 years old to the age of 16, where there was constant battles, where they were trying to get me put into school. I mean, at one point, I think I was aged 12, and this time my father was going to be sent to prison. And
say that again.
So this time, they'd moved the goalposts, the authorities. they were going to send my dad to prison. I was going to be made a water court. I was going to be sent to school, and I wasn't going to be... it's under the control of them then. I wouldn't be able to have the herbal medicine. That was... I mean, I was like any 12-year-old child at this point, quite healthy. They did try to send me back to school when I was 11 to high school, and I picked up meningitis.
Yeah.
So that was it then. My parents thought, look, you know, they thought I was, at that stage I was ready, but unfortunately I wasn't.
3 times they'd gone along with what they'd been told to do, even though it was against the better judgment, and each time you came back and you ended up being ill because you'd either got an infection or your immune system's low, you're picking something up, and on this last occasion, meningitis.
Yeah, so they just could not risk it. That was it. You know, my father said, Samantha's going to be educated at home. My father had contacted as well. For me, when I was ready for high school, he contacted Shiplake College. That was a boarding school for boys at the time that my father went to when he was a child. And he contacted them saying, look, you know, about my case, about how I'd become ill and I was being home tutored. And they were amazing. They sent all textbooks and all different lessons, because these lessons were really structured each day for me, Monday to Friday. And they sent all the resources. They were amazing. But... you know, even though the lessons were structured really well, you know, they weren't happy. And so this time my parents saying, we can't send Samantha back to school. And they said, no, look, we're looking at a warder court and you're being sent to prison. You're going to get a custodial sentence. So that's when my father contacted the local newspaper. The local newspaper got involved, and then I was on Good Morning Britain with my Anne Diamond.
Weird.
Yeah. They highlight the case that, you know, my father was home educating me at home, and he was going to be sent to prison for believing in, you know, home tutoring and the herbal medicine. So because of the highlight... it's not a good story for the medical authorities or the educational authorities. They decided to give my father a fine. They weren't going to send him to prison. They were going to put the case on hold. And strangely enough, because of the press got involved, because of that, they didn't send him to prison. There was kind of a little bit of pressure taken off the parents from the medical authorities and from the educational authorities. It's not good press, is it?
Well, it puts them in a very bad light because you can clearly see that your parents were put in an impossible situation.
Yes.
And in order not to go to prison, they had to risk your life. Yeah.
And this is this was the crazy. They had no other choice. It was either going to prison and me going into care, or trying to get help. And at that time, the media did help.
Yeah, your parents were very smart people.
I was blessed. It was
very strong people. Yeah.
And they were. I mean, as parents, we all want to do everything for our children, and we all do, and we'll do everything we can for them. And, you know, my parents, like you say, in the teachers, you know, Parent-Teacher Association, he was on the Board of Governors, my dad, at the primary school I was at originally. So they're very law-abiding people. But because of the situation they're in, unfortunately, it wasn't their choice to go against the system, because they weren't going against the system. They were just believing in an alternative form of treatment that was saving my life. Yeah. Now, when I was... So they backed off a little bit, and by the age of 14, lo and behold, they offered a home tutor.
So from the age of 14, Samantha, you've been on telly.
Yeah.
And then the authorities eased off a little bit. Your father got a fine, not a custodial, which he was threatened with. Yeah. And then you actually got a tutor provided at this point.
Yes, I was 14, and the authorities agreed for me to have a home tutor, for me to, you know, start having structured lessons with them. By that time, I was already having structured lessons that my mum and dad had set up for me. So when it comes to being educated, they really had set the home education up to such an extent that it was really working. And, you know, I was doing lots of things like with maths and algebra and, you know, there's so many different, and with English and history and geography. So there's so much that I'd already learned. So my parents thought, well, at this stage, the home tutoring, the education that I was receiving was fine. You know, they didn't really need that intervention from a home tutor. And from the age of 14 to 16, thankfully, the medical authorities and the education authorities kind of backed off.
The thing is, up till this point then, since the age of 8,
yeah,
passing through those formative years, you'd missed lots of school, hadn't you?
That's right.
Done what you could, but obviously being alive and your primary healthcare is number one. Education is number two.
Yeah, of course. But they did realise as parents, though, that I did need education. And, you know, that was something that was really structured really well. Curriculum was set out, was amazing what they did. And with the help of my dad's old school, they helped to provide all the books and the resources. So I suppose on that journey, we were blessed again. We were just so lucky. It was the people that we met, and the coincidences of how my dad had met Andrea and Ivan Gaffin and Mr. Abbott, because my dad obviously used a herbalist before I became ill. So we had a lot there. It was amazing, really.
On this show, we don't believe in coincidences. We call it, obviously, synchronicity and alignment.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're following your dharma, when you're passionate about something, and when your heart's in the right place, and you're moving in that direction, the right people will appear.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
definitely, and we were blessed with these people that we met. We came to the age of 16. And I had to go back. By then, it was yearly blood tests at the hospital. Now, I didn't have any leukemia from the age of 14 in my body. And so my 16th birthday came along, and I had choices then. And the choices were that when I went to hospital, I had my last blood test. And my parents said to me, my dad said to me and my mum, now you're 16, Sam, you know, it's your choice whether you want to continue going back to the hospital, because you don't have to when you're age 16, because my parents knew how anxious, even to the age of 16, I used to terribly fret before I went for my blood test. This was days before. So I'll never forget that. I went for my last blood test, and the doctor, the specialist that I'd been under right the way from the age of 8, said to me, right, you're doing really well. You know, we can't find any leukemia. You know, you're doing really well. We've
tried our best, and we just can't find any.
Yeah, and well, to be honest, they probably were trying. But anyway, so he said, you know, we'll see you again in a year's time. And I knew in my heart and in my mind, I thought, this is the last time I'll set foot in this hospital.
Yeah. What's amazing is, if you go back to being 8 years old, being 16 with the rest of your life in front of you, with choices.
This is it.
You never thought you'd get there.
Yeah.
Or certainly most people didn't think you'd get there. And yet here you are.
Yeah.
You know?
This was my life now. This is the start of my journey, and make them decisions for me. And I know it sounds terrible to say, but I was free.
Yeah.
I was free from the fear of the hospital. I was free from the fear of the authorities. Because even though my parents were going through that, I'm seeing all this go on, how it's affecting myself, how it's affecting my brother. You know, my brother through his teenage years, you know, he went through bullying himself in school. You know, so my brother really went through it, because as well as my parents home educating me and giving me the herbal treatment, even though my brother was going to school, my parents had to spend a lot of time like with home education. So in some ways, my brother, he wasn't left out by any means, and he was truly loved. But when you're having children, you spend all your divided attention on how many children you've got and give them the love. Well, Paul was given that love, and he always was. But they couldn't give the time as much for Paul. So...
Like it or not, he was along for the ride, wasn't he?
Yeah. But he went through it as well. Because I mean, at one point during our journey, during that time when my father was being threatened to go to prison, there was, where my dad worked, there was an advertisement for a holiday to go to Dawlish. And my dad thought, right, okay, it's our way of escaping the authorities for a bit. So I never forget, so many days before we went on holiday, there was a car that kept turning up on the street and pulled right next to our car, and it was stayed there for a number of hours, for a few days. And my mum went out, and she thought, I'm a bit concerned. It was a gentleman in the car.
Yeah.
So she went and she said, excuse me. She said, you've been on this street for a number of days now. She said, I'm just, a bit concerned who you are. So they said they were looking for such a person on our street, and mum said didn't know them. And then the Minnie disappeared and didn't come back. A couple of days later, this was my parents' escape to go on the run, basically. And they took us to Dawlish, in this place where there was going to be hardly anyone there because it was out of season. And unbelievably so, as we were trying to get out of Hayward quickly, because my father didn't know whether, when he was going to go to prison. So my father thought, let's get out of here. So this Minnie started following my parents out of Hayward. So it's like a bit of cat and mouse trying to get rid of this Minnie.
This is before your dad went to the media, isn't it? This is before that happened. Yeah. So he's still, at this point, there's still a real risk of him going to prison.
Yeah, definitely. So, it was kind of, what do my parents do? Go to this place, which me and Paul thought it was a little holiday. But actually, in fact, they were going on the run because if my father was going to get sent to prison, my father's fear was, well, what's going to happen with Samantha? The authorities are going to get her. So, this may be another option when we go on holiday. If I come back and I've got to go to prison, well, if Kath has got Samantha and Paul trying to go into hiding somewhere, it was...
Well, I suppose when you're desperate, you've got to think of these options, haven't you?
Yeah.
When you've nowhere left to turn.
Yeah, and it got to that point. It did get to that point. So going back to when we come back, and obviously my dad didn't go to prison, and then we talked about the home education. I just wanted to mention a little bit about my brother, really, and how he was affected by it all.
So you've left us with a cliffhanger there. You've gone away because you're sort of semi on the run, and this car's following you.
Yes, this car's following, and my dad was trying to speed up and go down streets, and this Minnie was trying to speed up, and they thought, we're in trouble here. We're not going to get this escape. We're not going to get this escape. Somehow the authorities knew that my father and mum were doing something, because this Minnie was the same Minnie that was parked on the street.
They were basically tailing you.
Yeah, and that's what it was.
You were a threat to pharmaceutical companies. The fact that there was another way, that what they were peddling maybe wasn't working, and there was another way, and they don't like it.
No, that's it. And it's because the treatment was working and I was still alive, and it's not treatment from these massive pharmaceutical companies. Like you said, they didn't like it. No. And that's the tragedy, though, in all of this. What is more important, a person's life, or it's about money?
Yeah, well, you were an anomaly, a threat to the structure, the distribution, and the profits made from certain medical treatments, and they saw you as a threat.
Yeah. And we were treated, my parents were treated like criminals, you know, for what, deciding on an alternative treatment that was working. But they were, honestly, they went through so much emotionally because of what pressure they were under. They were frightened all the time, was going to be took into care. They didn't know next what they were up to. So this was the last, it got to the point where, you know, what else can be done? If I'm going to prison, I'm going to somehow have to protect Sam, Kathy and Paul. I've got to somehow do, while I'm in prison, who's going to be there for them?
Yeah.
And we had an old Viva at the time. So it took quite some time for my dad to, for the Mini to lose the Mini, this car that was chasing my dad. And somehow we got free. And I never forget, my mum and dad were definitely quiet in the car as we were setting off on our journey.
They'd be frightened.
Yeah, and they were petrified. And we went on this journey and we got to Newton Abbot in Devon, and the Viva broke down, the car broke down, and we pulled up outside this house. Well, it went, the car, and we didn't know what time. It was the gearbox. So anyway, my dad pulled up, and would you believe, my dad knocked on this door, and they were the most loving couple you could ever meet. And I think things happen for a reason, don't they?
Yeah.
And they were amazing. They kept us warm and asked did we want sandwiches and drinks, and they let my dad use the phone so my dad could phone his dad to pick us up. And my granddad lived in Newton Abbot as well. So it was strange. So anyway, to cut a long story short, my granddad came and he picked us up and arranged to see whether a local garage could tow away the car. And this couple were saying, you know, we don't mind it being there at the moment. We'll keep our eye on it. And they were lovely. So the next thing, my granddad took us to this wonderful holiday park. It was great. It was a nice swimming pool, and there was a couple of other people there, and there was like a little clubhouse. And, you know, my parents couldn't say the reason why they were there. So to other people, the only very, very few people that we were just a little family coming away on a breakaway. Little did they know that my parents were on the run from the authorities.
Yeah.
So we had some parents, and they even did were asked to go up and do a Mr. and Mrs., competition. Yeah. So there's my mum and dad, like a normal family, which we were, but doing a Mr. and Mrs. But you've got the authorities probably searching high and low. Where have they gone?
Yeah. Maybe tell us, because we discussed this briefly, how did your brother then end up in a room with microphones? How does this fit in?
The school had said that there was a place in the countryside that children of families that were experiencing difficulties, so such as someone's ill, one of the siblings is poorly, that the other child could have this like breakaway.
Yeah. So that is where I was getting confused. So that's not the trip you'd been on Newton Abbot. This is another.
Yeah. What happened was my parents thought, do you know what? What a wonderful idea. This is time for Paul. You know, his time with other children, probably similar age, and they thought it was an amazing opportunity. Paul was looking forward to it. You know, it was a breakaway, and he'd gone down there, and very quickly my parents were contacted. There must have been, there was a phone there by my brother, who was extremely upset, and he basically went on to tell them that he'd been brought to this place in the middle of nowhere. in the moors somewhere, and that there was documentation with the dress on that Paul had seen. So he kind of stuck it in his pocket and thought, I'm going to keep that. And he got to phone when this guy that was there, and there was a woman that were in this place where Paul had been taken to, and there was no other children there. Yeah. There was just my brother and these people. And he said it was strange because there was microphones in there and he didn't understand it. And there was like toys and like, you know, games that Paul could play with, but he was like playing games with this woman and having things to eat. But then all of a sudden he was having times where he was being interviewed and talked to about, well, how did Paul feel about his home life, and how was Samantha, you know, how was she being affected by everything? And
it was a ruse, wasn't it, basically?
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, you just can't, honestly, you just can't believe what was going on. And Paul had phoned up my dad and he was traumatised. He was crying down the phone. And my parents went into sheer panic. What is going on?
Yeah.
And Paul gave them the address of this place. And my dad and my mum rushed down there. They went there and they went to this place and they were met by this woman. Said, look, we've come to pick our son, blah, blah. Well, no, you can't just turn up here like that. And my father said, we need to get our son and we need to get him now. He's been very traumatised. What has gone, you know, what's going on here? And this was going on for about 20 minutes. And then this gentleman came out with our Paul, quite upset still. And my dad and mum raised concerns about what Paul had just said. And they said, well, listen, it's just unfortunate that other children just couldn't come on this weekend break. You know, there's nothing like that. He's been here, he's been having food, we've been playing games. Look, you know, this particular lady that was playing different games with him. And my mum and dad just knew by Paul. He was so traumatised by it.
Yeah.
And they brought him away. The two people that had Paul said that, you know, we weren't allowed just to come and take him like that. It'd been a planned weekend for him. Lots of time had gone into plan this weekend break for Paul. But my parents weren't having any of it.
I think by this point then you're realising that as far as institutions and the schooling system and the medical system and everything, you can't trust anybody at this point, you know.
And that's what stage it had got to.
Yeah.
You know, even at such a thing as saying, well, look, a nice breakaway. In normal terms, if someone say someone's looking after someone that's poorly, say at the moment, and the carer, say the mum's is not well, and it's just the mum and the child. Well, the child would be offered these like mini breaks, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
As a carer's break. But that wasn't anything like that. And my parents Paul's their son, like I have one son, you know, and to me, I would be thinking, if I'm going to trust anyone to look after my son, you know, it would be an environment like that. Well, the school, you're going to trust the education system, surely. So that's when that happened with Paul, you know, who could they actually trust? Who could they turn to?
It almost sounds like, you know, the Men in Black, like the CIA or the FBI and the tactics they use. And I definitely think that the motivation behind all of this is to do with the fact that you and your family were a thorn in the side and seen as a threat to the existing system, the schooling system, and to the medical system, because, you know, you're an anomaly. You survived a treatment that you weren't expected to. You recovered from a disease that you weren't expected to recover from.
Yeah.
And it was all done with medicines that they made no profit from.
Exactly. And and the thing is with herbal medicine is, you know, you're not suffering like the suffering that I went through and so many other people, you know, we've gone through over the years, and it's still being used today. You know, I'm here today and I'm perfectly healthy. You know, this was years ago that this happened to me, but they're still using chemotherapy and they're still looking at cures, but I was cured. So why, after all these years,
Are they not looking
at alternative medicine as a form of safe treatment to treat different diseases, and cancer being one of them?
Because it's free and because they don't make money out of it.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. We've discussed
definitely.
this in our household, myself and Willow, my partner.
Yeah.
Neither of us will ever have chemotherapy, ever.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. One, the success rates, even if you go from the statistics, infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Secondly, there is no proof at all that it extends your life.
No, definitely not.
Thirdly, quite often the consequences and side effects and things that happen from having radiotherapy are far worse than any disease.
Absolutely.
And then the time you do have left, there's no proof it extends that period of time. And you're guaranteed if you're going to have radiotherapy, you're going to be very ill for the time you have left.
Yeah.
You can maximise and live your life to the full with the time that's you have left without the radiotherapy. You can still have some kind of quality of life and feel relatively healthy for a longer period. We went through all the pros and cons. If we both get diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, we'll accept the diagnosis, not the prognosis.
Yeah.
We'll try and live a happy, healthy life with diet, with laughter, with surrounding ourselves with people that love, and no way, shape or form will radiotherapy ever be part of our lives.
Yes.
That's a decision we've already come. People say, well, how can you say that? You can't say that when you've not got cancer. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
You've got a choice.
Yeah, it's up to me.
Yeah, it is. This is it. It is your choice. And looking at the effects of the treatment and the damage it causes alone, you know, it is understandable why you've chosen that decision. It's up to any individual to choose what type of treatment they decide and type of lifestyle they live. And obviously I'm not here to say to people, you know, you do this thing, you decide on this medical intervention or this. That's not what I'm here for. It's about being honest and telling the story.
And choice as well. I'm not telling anybody else what to do.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm very clear on that.
Yeah.
Prior to ever knowing I was going to do this show with you,
Yeah.
this is a topic we've discussed at length in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important that you do discuss something like that, you know, with your loved ones. I mean, there's a lot more people now these days diagnosed with cancer than there was when I was a lot younger.
Yeah. Well, I think stress levels are a massive part of triggering cancer.
Yeah.
You know, two people and your diet and other things. You can have two people that both smoke all their life. One will die at 40, have a heart attack. One will live till 80, 90. Now, so the smoking, although it's a contributory factor and very bad for your health, that isn't what kills you.
No.
You know, there's other factors at play. And I think the main one is stress. I say you can actually get away with drinking and smoking. If you've got a happy mind and you're not stressed, you can get away with quite a lot. Mm-hmm. You throw stress into that equation and you'll die pretty quick if you're having a very unhealthy lifestyle. Yeah. And if you had two twins and they both smoke and one dies young and one doesn't. So, yes, smoking is a massive part of that equation. Yes, smoking can be a huge contributing factor to cancer, but it's not on its own.
No.
If two people have different outcomes from the same diagnosis, you've got to start questioning what are the factors involved. And stress, for me, is one of the biggest killers.
Yeah,
you know.
It is, definitely.
So back to your point, Samantha, saying that cancer there's a lot more diagnosis of it now and it's more prevalent now. I think that is a big part of that is to do with the lifestyles we lead.
Yeah.
Eating processed food.
Absolutely.
Being plugged into televisions, computers, mobile phones, emails, texts, all of these things, and high levels of stress.
Yeah.
Those factors have all multiplied exponentially over the last 30 years.
Yeah, they have. Hugely. And these are the things that are, because of all of them factors. And this is why you've got so many people with the likes of having like disease like cancer and other diseases.
Yeah. I mean, go back 30 years ago, nobody ever heard of, bipolar, ADHD, a lot of these things. Now it's rife. And I think it's to do with the life we lead.
It is very much so, very much so. It's this fast-paced lifestyle, like you mentioned. People have got the phones now, so years ago, there's a lot more people talking to each other. These days, it's by text message, or you're on Messenger, or you're on Facebook, and things like that. Social media, comes into play.
I think we emit a frequency, right? If you have a thought, that thought is a frequency.
Yeah.
And with mobile phones, emails, phone calls, texts, whatever, if you were an accountant 30 years ago, you might sit in an office, you'd have a phone, somebody might answer the phone for you, and you'd focus and concentrate on doing your accounts. Yeah. Now, you have a mobile phone, and that phone's going to be beeping with answer machine messages, phone calls, text messages, and social media. You'll have a computer on, and you're getting emails, and you're constantly getting interrupted all day. And I think that disruption in being able to concentrate, focus, and emit that frequencies, I think that's really unhealthy.
Absolutely. It is. That's having such an impact on people's mental health, but also physically as well. And
staring at screens. A lot of us wake up in the morning, look at our phone, maybe look at the iPad.
Yeah.
Drive to work, look at a computer screen.
Yeah.
Come home, look at the phone, look at the laptop, switch the television on.
Yeah.
And we could spend, easily 10 hours a day looking at a screen of some kind.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's very, very bad.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good for your overall mental health by any means, but also physically. Where's the exercise? If you're going to be sat there for hours on end, it's like children of today. A lot more of them have got the tablets and they're spending hours on these type of things, or watching games, or playing indoors a lot, should I say. But what about going out there? What about that rough and tumble of playing with each other, with friends and the neighbours? When I was younger, they'd be sat out on the wall chatting to each other. But these days, I've lived on the same street for 17 years, and I only know so many people. I don't know everyone on the street. And I'll always say good morning and hello. But a lot of people don't have that same...
Some don't connect at all.
Connection with each other.
Yeah.
And it's a shame we've lost that. But I think it's the way technology is moving forward. Yeah. I think that is a massive destruction.
Yeah, I think that in theory, mobile phones and iPads, they thought would bring us all closer together. The reality is people are quite isolated and detached and not getting the human interaction and contact. From your notes, Samantha, which I thought was quite a beautiful thing, is that you put about how you felt when you were starting college.
Yes.
And what a beautiful place to be when, definitely for a long time, you didn't know whether you're going to actually ever get there.
Yeah.
I
must admit, my journey into college was one of joy, one of wonder, one of... and I found I settled into college life very easily. My parents and I went to see Holy Cross College. It was in Bury.
Yeah.
I went there for 2 years, and we went to see the principal. We made an appointment, and thankfully the principal, Sister Mary Kelly at the time, she saw me, and my father explained about home education, things like that.
Yeah.
And she thought the best form of courses to do was called a CPVE, like a vocational course.
So is this a sixth form college? Or
sixth form college in Bury, lovely college. And so I did this vocational course. So I was doing things like maths, English, catering, art. So there was a big mix, and it was brilliant. I met some amazing people. And, I was a 16-year-old girl, and I was ready for... enjoying my life. It was my time. That's the way I thought it. This is my time. Nothing and no one is going to tell me what to do. I wasn't rebellious in every way, but I was making the decisions. So I did this course for a year and I loved it. And then I went and took my GCSEs at the same college the year after. And I settled into college life amazingly well. Went out on some fantastic nights out. How you do at that age, one was at the 17. I went to a college disco, which was arranged by the college disco. But then when I was 18, I went out with friends and we go to the pubs. And
I suppose you had a lot of making up to do.
Yes.
For partying.
I had lots of friends and a few lads were asking me out and I was like, I'm enjoying myself here. Yeah. This is my fun time.
How old were you when you met your hubby, Brian?
I was 19.
Right, okay. And did he sweep you off your feet?
Well, I was at the Embassy Club, Bernard Manning's.
Yes.
Yeah, how it happened was I was working at the time at Index.
Catalogues,
yeah.
I remember.
I was working in the stock office. My brother worked at Index in another office at the time, but there was a works do going to Bernard Manning's. And he said, you've got to come Sam, it'll be fun. And I was like, gosh, I'd rather go out with my friends on a Saturday night out and go clubbing it. So I kind of reluctantly agreed to go.
Which clubs did you go to, by the way?
Oh, it was called Chamber House in Haywood. Yeah. I like to go there.
Yeah.
Braces in Rochdale, went there. Bit later on, Soho's, that was a local one in Haywood, but I loved it.
So these aren't really rave clubs, these are piss pot clubs, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes,
you are
like
right. There's no haciendas or anything that. No, there was nothing like that. But yeah, I was like, I was here, there and everywhere. It was just life. And I've gone on a holiday when I was 18 with one of my close friends who became really close friends with, called Sharon, who I'm really close friends with today as well. Me and Sharon met when I was about 15. In our local street, because she lived in the next street to me, and we became good friends, her and her other friend Alison, who became good friends with her. So we went on this holiday to Cavos, partied like, still party area now. So we went and we had 2 weeks of partying. It was just brilliant. But going back to this with Brian, I said to my brother, right, okay, I'll go. So I went, but I encouraged Sharon to go. I thought, I'm not going on my own with,
This is the Embassy Club, yeah?
Yeah, the Embassy Club. So, I know Paul would have been there with his friends, but it was a different department, so I didn't really know them that well. So Sharon came along and we went. And while we were there that night, the drinks were flowing, the entertainment was fantastic. Bernard Manning was hilarious. And I noticed this lad across from me. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and quite a few drinks had gone by then. And I kind of I wouldn't normally do this, but ushered him over. I said, come over, and we started talking. And that was the start of it, really.
So you sort of took charge.
I know.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
You must have just known.
It's strange because I'm not that type of person normally. I was more out for having fun with my friends. Yeah. So when Brian came along, so we met that night. He was with me. He started chatting away to my other friend, and the end of the night, we exchanged a kiss, and then after that, didn't really think anything of it. I thought, what a lovely lad. I wasn't inclined to go around kissing everyone that I seen, but there was just something about him. And anyway, we lived locally in Haywood, so we kind of were always going in different pubs, and we'd always chat and things like that. And he asked me one time when I was out, did I want to go out? So I went out with him on a night out, but I only used to go out with him on a Thursday because my social life was Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the girls, so I was having none of that. So 9 months on, I kind of decided, well, look, I think Brian wanted to spend a bit more time with me, and we kind of started seeing each other a bit more at the weekends, and it just went from there, really. Right. And I'm still with my beautiful husband today.
Okay.
30 odd years on.
And your son, Ryan, how old were you when you had him?
I was 23. Right. I was 23, and I never forget, I got pregnant, and the form of treatment I had, obviously the chemotherapy, they say you're being fertile. Never mind, obviously not being here to have a child, but I became pregnant, and I had my beautiful son Ryan. He was very healthy. I had no problems with the pregnancy. Now, a lot of people, when they go to see the midwives, they will go to the local doctors. I, at the time, had to go to the Fairfield, the hospital for mine. They probably were checking, obviously, on the growth of Ryan, probably because of the treatment I'd had. So I kind of got that, why they did that. But I knew personally I was fine, I was healthy, you know. So anyway, I had Ryan. He was £9.4 born.
And Ryan will be how old now, Samantha?
He's 27.
And what's he do?
He actually is a trainee asbestos surveyor, so he's just doing his exams now. So he'll just go into a room and just see if there is
and fill it with asbestos.
No, because when he was doing it, I was a bit concerned, thinking, oh my God, dangerous material. But you know, he's not pulling it all out. He's just seeing whether there is any there, and they do.
I know, I'm teasing.
And they'll draw up drawings for it. So he's happy.
Yeah, he'll go in, look at a place, assess if there's asbestos, what kind of asbestos it is.
Yeah.
Is
And
it
do a
health
report.
risk?
Yes.
Does it need removing? And if so, then they have usually another company or possibly the same
That's
company.
right.
They'll come
Yeah.
in and they'll sheet it out and
That's
put all
right.
the
Wear
protective
the white
gear
suits.
on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what Ryan. But he's happy with doing that. Yeah.
Your brother, an update on your brother. He lives in Canada now,
Yes.
does he? Which part?
He lives in Burlington, just outside Toronto. He lives, and he loves it. Our Paul, when did he go? He went over there, I'd say 2001, I think it was, when my brother went over there. He'd been with a lovely lady called June, who I'd known through Sharon.
It's funny. I have an Auntie June, and she lives in Canada.
Do you?
Yes.
Small world,
I
isn't
know,
it?
I know.
But this girl, June, he'd met, I was explaining a little, he'd met over here, June, but they'd been together a number of years, and the relationship broke down. I mean, even when Ryan was younger, you know, he was always saying, you know, I'll babysit, and he was, you know, he's selfless, really. He was amazing. But I knew he wanted to travel, and he wanted to travel for some time. And he'd said, like, I remember speaking to him one occasion when I took Ryan round to his house, and he said, Sam, I feel the need, I need to go now and do this travelling, because if I don't do it now, I never will. And he'd done a lot of research on moving over to Canada. So he decided to get a visa, went over there and worked for 6 months, and he met a girl called June, 2nd June. He decided them 6 months was going to be a lifetime decision. They got married, and they had a wonderful, beautiful daughter, Danielle, who's my niece, she's 18 now, and she's amazing. Unfortunately, June, they've been married for so many years and they broke up, but they're still really good friends. But he's so happy now in Canada. He's met a lovely lady called Tracy, and she's just like Paul, very soft-scented, always thinking of everyone else. And she's an amazing woman for him. So I know he's content and he's happy there.
Have you been over to see him?
To be honest, the journey going over to Canada is one that I need to do. I'm a frightened flyer, very scared flyer, would you believe?
I've not been yet either.
Yeah.
I want to. It looks...
Yeah.
Just the countryside, the nature looks beautiful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it looks stunning. So yeah, that's something I will be doing.
Okay, Samantha. So we're going to get a bit more current now, and I'm going to bring you into the present and the last few years.
Yeah.
Now, you trained in complementary therapies.
I did.
So for anybody that's listening at home, what are complementary therapies, and what complementary therapies did you train in?
Well, complementary therapies are a therapy treatment that you can have alongside orthodox medicine.
Okay.
So you could be having having some sort of orthodox treatment for a particular condition, but they can also have a treatment such as reflexology.
Yeah.
And they could have that as well as having the current orthodox medicine that they're having.
So the difference between holistic treatments and therapies and complementary
And alternative medicines, yes.
What's the difference between those, or are they the same?
Alternative treatments is a treatment that you'll have standalone. So herbal medicine is an alternative form of treatment. So you would have that instead of an orthodox treatment or another treatment.
Got you.
Complementary holistic form of treatment is something that you can have alongside orthodox. So they kind of support each other as treatment. So you can have an orthodox treatment as well as having a reflexology, aromatherapy, Swedish massage. So they kind of complement each other.
Gotcha. And holistic medicine or treatments or an approach is where they look at
treating the whole body.
The whole body.
Yeah.
Looking at, your energy, your diet.
That's right.
Could be acupuncture, reflexology, all of these things.
Right.
Where they don't isolate and say they've got a problem in the liver. What they're actually going to say is, okay, well, they've got a problem in the liver. And this could be for any number of these reasons. So let's get them healthy altogether.
Yeah. And with complementary therapies or alternative medicines like herbal medicine, you're not just treating where the issue is. You're going to look at treating the whole of the body, because manifestation, the reason why that disease is manifested is not, say, with me with the leukemia in the bone marrow, but things have happened prior to that within the body.
Yeah.
To make the body to stop working. Because the body, when it's healthy, works perfectly in sync with each other, with all the systems of the body. But stress, as we've talked about, is a major factor for causing illness, and other things like dietary, environmental, lots of things can cause illness. Yeah. So with the alternative medicines, we're looking at treating the whole person, because there's not just one element that's caused that disease.
So not only are you qualified in complementary therapies, but you now have a training academy. So tell us what it's called.
It's called White Opal Beauty and Holistic Training Academy in Haywood.
Okay. And what treatments does this cover? What treatments do you train other complementary therapists to do?
Currently, what we specialise in is reflexology, aromatherapy, Swedish massage, hot stone therapy, various facials, we're also introducing Reiki, but we've got a lot of other courses that we're going to specialise in, say pregnancy massage. We're going to focus on that, and there's also other extensions of therapies that we want to bring into the academy. And there's going to be lots of workshops as well. So
you not only you administer and give these treatments and therapies, but you train people in them.
Yes.
So you're a trainer teacher.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The academy is just for the training, but obviously I've been to college and university to get that knowledge and experience behind me, so I can support students in their journey and learning lots of new therapies. So they might be, and we have lots of students that have come in that just want a different career path. So they've contacted us and saying, well, we want to do reflexology. And from there, they've gone on to do other sorts of holistic treatments as well. And it's nice to see them progressing from when they first come in, and they might not know anything about the complementary therapies, and they're going out there on the journey. They've been guided, they've been supported, and they've gone on that journey, and now they're very happy therapists out there that love the jobs.
So tell us the name of it once more, Samantha, the Training Academy.
Oh, right. It's White Opal Beauty and Holistic Training Academy.
And it's based in?
In Haywood.
Haywood. So when this video goes live on YouTube, in the text underneath, I'm going to put some links.
Yeah.
And we'll put the Facebook page, which is called?
Samantha Wilson. That's my personal page.
Okay. And then the Facebook business page, which is called?
Which is White Opal Beauty and Holistic Training Academy. And the actual website for that is www.therapytrainingcentre.com.
Okay, so we'll put those links underneath, and then anybody who wants to get in touch with you and they want to find out more about your training centre and the complementary therapies you do, they can just go straight in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, Samantha, finally,
I know,
I want to talk to you about your book.
Right.
So, what's it called?
It's called Reluctant Rebels, the book.
Reluctant Rebels.
Rebels, yes.
Okay. What's it about?
It's about my journey through the diagnosis of the leukemia that I had, and the journey with using alternative medicine, herbal medicine, home education, and then it goes on to, you know, my relationship with Brian, and then there was some real difficult times in the book, a terrible experience that my mum went through that really rocked the family.
Are the reluctant rebels your mum and dad?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
Yes. Because reluctantly, they weren't the ones that wanted to. You know, they were passionate about education.
Yeah, they just want to bring the children up in a safe environment, and ended up going against the system, which was never the plan.
The tragedy, do you know, in all of this is with with my mum and dad and against the authorities all the time. They were constantly up against the fear, the worry, you know, for what, 8 years really you're talking about. And when I was 18, they broke up.
Oh.
I know.
Well, they've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I always say it's much better to have two single happy parents than two.
Yeah.
A lot of parents used to say, oh, we stayed together because of the kids.
Yeah.
And they're at each other's throats. It's not a nice environment. Yeah. A child would rather spend some time with its mother and some time with its father when they're happy.
Yeah.
If they're not, you know, they've been through a lot and maybe that part of the journey was over. That's, you know, if you see it like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Are they both still alive now?
My mum passed away 3 years ago, but my dad is still alive and well, and I still have a good relationship, of course, with my dad. Yeah. But I always had, I mean, with my mum, you know, I was exceptionally close to my mum. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, whatever happens going forward, you just always remember that they fought for you. Didn't they?
Every breath.
Yeah. The parents would have given up, you know, long before. Yours didn't.
They got this strength from somewhere, you know. My life, I owe my life to them.
What a beautiful tribute, the title of your book, and the fact that your book's about your journey, but obviously your journey was crafted by them.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
They were responsible for keeping you in this realm for a bit longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by having them, you know, save my life with Mr. Abbott, I've gone on to be able to learn myself about alternative treatments, because my passion is alternative medicine and education as well. So maybe if I hadn't have experienced what I'd gone through, I wouldn't have been now so, you know, passionate about alternative medicines, about education, and things happen sometimes. I'm truly believe that for a reason. I was meant to still be here today, and I was meant to share this story with other people.
You were meant to write your book, and you were meant to do this show.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me the time and the compassion and understanding to allow me to share my story with you.
Well, Samantha, you're very welcome. I have been gripped from start to finish with your story.
Oh, thank you.
It's been like a couple of points. When you've paused, I'm like, what happened next?
Yeah.
You know, like cliffhangers. But fascinating story. And what now might seem not nearly as incredible in those periods, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, 45 years ago, they were very, very different times back then.
Yeah, of course they were.
You know,
of course they were.
And so what now might be maybe fairly standard, maybe you'd expect the parents to do some of the things that they do now. Back then, you were a reluctant rebel. If you did those things in that time, you were outcast.
Absolutely.
You know, even threatened with jail and pursued by the intelligence and everything else.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean...
It's like a movie. In fact, it is a movie. It's a movie. It's
my life story and my life journey. And I know everyone's on a life journey. And I'm just here just to share one journey and to share with people that, you know, there's so much hope out there. Alternative medicine need to be more accepted in the orthodox world with medicine.
Yeah.
You know, there is cures out there for diseases, and I'm just living proof of one of them.
Yeah. In the Western world, we're currently turning down the Amazon and the rainforest at an alarming rate, and some of the plants, the diversity within that area is incredible. And they reckon for every disease, every ailment, there is a natural remedy, a natural cure. And they can't cover it up and destroy it quick enough.
No, I know. And that's a tragedy, and a real tragedy for everyone on this earth. You know, the more they're doing that, the more they're hiding, the more they're destroying. You know, they're destroying our medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Samantha, and I wasn't joking about it being a movie either. And I know a couple of people that write scripts for different dramas and things. A lady that's been on here recently, Jenny Barry, is also now delving into that world of script writing. But I think this has got a movie written all over it, and it'd be a beautiful story as well.
Oh,
yeah.
If it can help one person, you know, that'd be a blessing to just even help one person and to share them experiences with other people that may be going through a similar situation with no hope.
Yeah.
To let them know there's hope and there's
Always.
life.
Yeah. You're the first walking miracle I've had on this show.
Oh, thank you.
You are a walking miracle. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Samantha, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been my pleasure. I'm delighted you agreed to do this show eventually, because it took a while.
I know, it did, because I was very nervous. I think because emotionally, things, even so long gone, were quite raw still.
Yeah.
And I think by doing the book, it's helped me put closure to some of them experiences. So now I feel like I can open up about certain things, and I've always wanted to do. But sometimes I think when you've gone through some difficulties in your life, there's no magic wand to say when you're going to heal.
Yeah.
Through them experiences, and but I was desperate to wanting to help other people, and that's the reason why I'm passionate about my holistic medicine and alternative medicine, and I was passionate to share this story, and finally I'm here now and sharing that, which has been a dream come true. You allowing me to come on your show.
Oh, well, thank you. If somebody wants to buy your book, we've not said where are they going to be able to get your book.
It's actually going to be on Amazon.
And it's not released yet, is it? It's imminent.
No, it's very, very imminent. So probably in the next three weeks, probably, I'd say.
Okay.
So everything is near as damn it ready for the book. So it'll be in places, it'll be on like Amazon, Waterstone. So you can buy it as a Kindle.
Yeah.
You can buy it as the book version. Paperback, yes. So there's lots of outlets that you will be able to buy the book.
I think once it goes on Amazon as well, it naturally filters down into a lot of other outlets. So the likes of Goodreads and Booktopia and all these places.
Right.
So, but Amazon is going to be the primary point initially.
Yeah.
Samantha, thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, thanks for watching. This has been the Midnight McBride Show with my special guest, Samantha Wilson. I'm going to leave you with a quote from my first book, From Pills to Peace, and it's simply this: in order to learn anything, we have to talk about everything. In order to make an informed decision, in order to make a good decision, we need all the information, all the facts. You can watch this video podcast every Monday and every Thursday on YouTube, and you can subscribe to get notifications. 3 days later, it comes out as an audio podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Amazon, Google, and many others. You can go to the website, midnightmcbride.com. You can go to Salford City Radio, 94.4 FM, and listen to my radio show, The Mind, Body and Spirit Show, every Monday night from 11 till midnight. You can catch me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can buy the book on Amazon, in paperback and Kindle format, and you can also get the audiobook on ACX, iTunes and audible.com. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Shalom.